2 a.m. in the morning, and you wake up to the buzzing sound of your TV. You clearly aren't supposed to be up because you have school to attend in a couple of hours. But since you're up anyways, you rest your gaze on the glow of your TV. The usual broadcast for Adult Swim is airing, and you just lay in your bed hoping to fall back to sleep. Your eyes get heavy, and they start to close. But then all of a sudden, what you just experienced was the uncanny feeling of a cartoon outro. Cartoons are well known for things like their intros, animations, and characters. These three elements essentially are what gives cartoons their immersive and magical feel. But what doesn't get talked about enough is the very thing that rips you out of that magical feel, which is the cartoon studio outro. Studio outros in cartoons I have always had a love and hate relationship for. There are days where I love them because as a kid I thought they were super funny, even at times really soothing. But more often than not, I hated them because they always left me feeling startled, confused, but also somehow intrigued. Mind you, I just had a great time watching what had aired before that. Now, when I say uncanny, what I mean is in terms of when something feels strange, mysterious, and even at times hard to explain. Now, of course, when I say this, I'm referring to an outro like William Street. That's the obvious. But before we explore some of the more well-known and obvious outros, first I want to take you guys back to one of the first outros that I remember seeing back when I was just a toddler. Now, the Hanna-Barbera Swirling Star outro, I really do have a great sense of nostalgia and appreciation for. Of course, being that it's Hanna-Barbera, I do remember this outro playing after shows like Jetsons, the Flintstones, and Scooby-Doo would air. I don't know, seeing this metallic star that would twist and turn while also leaving like a colorful streak in its path, it was enough to make me put my toys down and look at what was happening on the screen. This whimsical sound would play as the star is moving, and then once the star got to the center of the screen, you almost heard what would sound like a piano note that ended it all, which really was a nice cherry on top. The outro was simple, easy on the eyes, and it sounded like magic to my ears. Sometime later though, Hanna-Barbera would upgrade their outro to this. The All-Star outro by far is the best outro from the Hanna-Barbera series. The rapid movement from some of the Hanna-Barbera characters really gave the outro a chaotic feel, but in a good way. And just seeing all of the Hanna-Barbera characters zip and zoom past the screen really showed you just how talented and stacked of a roster Hanna-Barbera really had. But for as nostalgic of an outro that this is, for me at least, that uncanny feeling comes back when I hear the audio. While the visuals are great, the sound of the classic slapstick sounds, being that it's so sporadic, it doesn't match the visuals for me in any way. You hear running, things getting hit and doinked on. I think there's even a sound of a guitar being broken in half, if I'm not mistaken. One thing about it that I'm sure you know is that kids are very sensitive to sounds. The littlest of unusual of sounds can easily startle or make a kid uneasy. So hearing these sporadic sounds that didn't seem to match the visuals on screen, it kind of puts this outro somewhere in the middle for me. The visuals makes the outro completely nostalgic, but the audio, it just makes it uncanny. Now, if you want to talk about truly bizarre outros, there's no other place I'd rather go than Nickelodeon. The Klasky Csupo outro is one of the most bizarre outros that I've ever seen. I think the YouTube comments here best describes the feelings here. I've never felt such a powerful mixture of terror and nostalgia. Glad to know I wasn't the only one scared ishless by this logo when I was a kid. This thing sent shivers down my spine as a kid. I find it funny that an outro like this would play after a show like Real Monsters. That show already is enough reason to spook a child, so imagine seeing that show and then having to watch this right after. Childhood ruined. But I think one thing that Nickelodeon always had the upper hand in its competitive competitors over was how it perfectly tapped into the visceral side of a child's imagination. The slime, the hideous imagery of characters, the certain body parts used, Dan Snyder, the whole shebang. To see eyes and a mouth plastered over a splattered logo, I mean, here it's pretty par for the course for Nickelodeon, but what makes this outro truly terrifying was a collection of things. Besides the sudden emergence of an inanimate object having a realistic set of eyes and a mouth, other than that, it was a robotic voice that doesn't seem to match the face saying Klasky Shupo. And the outro ending with a black screen with what sounds like gibberish. Oh, and the duck honk at the end didn't help matters either. These are the general reasons why the Klasky Shupo outro terrified a lot of people, but I'll even throw something in there that I don't think anybody has mentioned that might seem a little out there. The frame rate. Something about the frame rate, even when I didn't even know what it was, I knew the frame rate for this outro felt a little too smooth. With just how the blue slime kind of comes in and coagulates and connects, it was just made the outro in some way just too polished and too clean. But at the same time, it was still rugged because of the makeshift eyes and mouth plastered over the splatted logo. So it was a mix of just things that shouldn't have connected. Oddly enough, I remember seeing this outro play a lot at night, which probably was a sign that I needed to go to sleep. This video is brought to you by Manta Sleep. Now, one thing about me, guys, is that I love naps, but being that my naps are during the day, I'm constantly having to deal with distractions. Distractions like bright sunlight hitting my room, the shameful sight of a popcorn ceiling, and that freaking smoke alarm outside of my room. Basically, napping feels like a chore. But ever since I started using Manta Sleep, that all changed. Manta Sleep specializes in sleep masks that are super comfortable, adjustable, and lightweight. With its premium design and feel, the sleep mask provides true blackout vision and zero eye pressure, completely doing away with those visual distractions. And to handle my smoke alarm issues, I use the Manta Sleep white noise machine to help drown out any outside noises. With the press of a button, the white noise machine provides rich and soothing sounds like white, rain, ocean, and fan noises. When you combine the Manta Sleep Mask with the white noise machine, it will make your sleep feel like an absolute privilege. Disclaimer, Manta Sleep will not make your soul leave your body. Please make sure you check out the Manta Sleep link down in the description, and make sure you use code Murrayvation to get 10% off your purchase. A huge thank you to Manta Sleep for sponsoring this video. DNA Productions is another outro that comes to mind when I think about truly terrifying cartoon studio outros. But what's even more bizarre is the fact that a lot of people actually found this outro to be quite amusing. I like to think Paul was one of Jimmy's failed cloning experiments. Paul made me laugh every time I saw him as a kid. Pure childhood memory. I never noticed that the bushes were molecules. Now you might look at this outro and say, well, Murray, the obvious reason why this outro was so terrifying because you have the sight of this three-eyed monkey turning around to the viewer and saying, "Hi, I'm Paul." While yes, you are correct, I don't think you fully grasp what's going on here. That just makes my skin crawl. Looking at this outro every time makes me realize how much I hate, and I mean hate, fourth wall breaks. If you're unaware as to what a fourth wall break is, it occurs when a character, show, play, or video game acknowledges the viewer, audience, or is just self-aware of its fictional nature. A show like Chowder is famous for constantly breaking outside the boundaries of its fictional world in order to solve whatever dilemma the characters were in. No matter how quick it was, with this three-eyed abomination turning around to greet the viewer, ladies and gentlemen, DNA Productions broke the fourth wall. And that terrified me. Now I could point to other things like how the trunks of the trees were rotating DNA spirals. I could talk about how DNA Productions ended up making several iterations of the outro. But what makes this outro even more intriguing was the studio outro that came before that one. Now, I don't know about you, but the sight of this jiggly purple O, the airy voice that would pronounce it, along with the melodic sound that played during it all, It actually makes this entire outro kind of like a double whammy. The first part of it is mysteriously iconic, but then the second half is pure nightmare fuel. With the O and everything it represented, it kind of gave me the same vibe and ambiance that the GameCube had. Kind of find it funny how both were purple at that. Trust me when I say, when the Jimmy Neutron credits hit, I basically saw that as a countdown to run out of my room and avoid seeing that dreaded monkey. Time out for a sec. I cannot believe that I almost brushed past one of these outros that literally gave me the same effect that Klasky Shupo and DNA Productions did. The Stretch Films Incorporated outro, just like the Hanna-Barbera one, I also experienced when I was a toddler. Which means every time I see this outro, I get a great sense of nostalgia, but also that same uncanny feeling. The Stretch Films outro will play after the credits of Courage the Cowardly Dog, which is ironic considering that show lives and breathes off of being uncanny. But if I'm being honest, there's not really much to the outro in regards to what it offers visually. If anything, for as simple as it is, it fits the outro's name quite well. The outro starts with a smile that then stretches its huge grin, which reveals the word Stretch Films Incorporated. But while doing so, the smile lets out a certain laugh. But I think what gave this outro that uncanny feeling was all that led up to it. The tune that plays during the credits is comprised of what sounds like a ukulele and a trumpet. What gives the credits its charm though are the numerous animal sounds that are heard throughout it. But the icing on the cake, of course, is at the end of the credits, hearing Eustace call Courage the infamous "Stupid dog!" With the appearance of the bright background of different images of Courage, the bright yellow text, the sound of the ukulele, and the various animal sounds, the credits build up this positive and groovy atmosphere. So once you get to the actual outro, the experience takes a complete 180. The screen is essentially black now, the music is gone, and all you have left is this somewhat sinister laugh. God forbid your TV was the only source of light in your room, because if so, it made the experience feel more personal and even eerie. Now, as you've already seen, cartoon outros can be mesmerizing, nostalgic, and absolutely terrifying, but not all outros had these effects. Some were just downright funny and entertaining. Stupid monkey. This has to be one of my favorite outros in terms of entertainment and humor. There's nothing profound or creatively impressive about the outro. It doesn't break the immersion in any way or feel uncanny at all. It's just a monkey doing stupid things. That's it. For as uncanny as Adult Swim already is, I find it funny that this outro is the most normal thing about it. I remember watching some of the Adult Swim shows and scratching my head a lot of the time because of the weird animations and adult humor that I couldn't understand at the time. So to see the stupid monkey outro felt like a reward for surviving all of the chaos. And even to this day, I'm still surprised with all the stupid things this monkey was able to do. I'm sure there are many more outros I could go over, but ultimately, we must return to the outro that started it all for me. William Street is the cartoon studio outro of my childhood that I felt the most mix of feelings for. Feelings to this day I still wrestle with. I was fascinated, curious, frightened, hypnotized, but also impressed all at the same time. Seeing this drabby, cloudy, whitish gray void, the rhythmic banging of what sounds like a hammer on a nail, and the steady beat of what sounds like a drum, it gives this outro this ghostly, supernatural, industrial, otherworldly feel to it. You can subtly see the William Street building subtly sway and twist, adding to that ghostly feel. But it's crazy too, because as soon as you start to become hypnotized by it, the outro just jinx you out with, if you guys were around during 2007 to 2009 specifically, seeing this outro through the lens of a kid was truly uncanny. The buzzing from the TV and the late night factor being that Adult Swim only airs past most kids' bedtimes, it all built up to a moment in my childhood that I'll never forget. But do you want to know what's crazy about all of these outros? Whether they were terrifying, funny, nostalgic, or otherworldly, one thing that they all were was necessary. Cartoon studio outros exist as a way to legally credit the wide amount of people who collectively worked on the episode and show. While the credits help thank individuals, these outros helped credit the entire production and brand. How these studios decided to credit themselves is what we witnessed, and it's why we held feelings of confusion, fear, and nostalgia. These outros served as the studio's autograph. But you know what? For all the uncanny feelings that these outros gave us, I wouldn't change a single thing about them. Because now when I look at them, I've now grown a fond sense of nostalgia and gratefulness towards them. Because behind all of these outros were an insane amount of great cartoon shows and an insane amount of childhood memories.